So, you ever watch those adverts on TV, and you know the ones I'm talking about? They're for Childline and Oxfam, and they always go along the lines of please give just £1 a month to save a child in need. And that's kind of how I see the motorcycle classifieds. So I've nearly finished the little RS1000R project. It's just awaiting the bodywork, and then it's good to go, and I'm really happy with it. So naturally I was looking for another project, surfing the classifieds when I saw this. I could tell by the pictures that it had a very hard life, though I hadn't anticipated just how hard a life it actually had. So I drove all the way down to Cornwall yesterday to pick this up. It's an Aprilia RSV1000R. It's a 2004 model. Allegedly it's had one owner on the book, and I think maybe 4 off the book that have treated it very badly. And I have to say I wasn't quite anticipating how badly it had been treated. So this is going to be my life for the next couple of months, and I invite you to join me on this. The first thing that we're going to do is strip the bike down and make a bit of a list. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with this yet. I'm not sure whether this can go back on the road for the sort of money that I want to spend on it, and I want to do it properly. If not, potentially it could go on the track as a good track day bike. That could be a viable solution. But yeah, it's an exciting project. I've had a couple of these before. They're good bikes. The problem with them is that parts are still really expensive, and second-hand parts now are starting to come at a premium. So yeah, stick around. We're going to go through the Dismantle now, and hopefully it's not going to be too painful. So let's start by seeing what pleasures await underneath here. I don't really know why people ever put these on bikes, because they don't actually do anything, and that is massive. Clearly not made for that. You can see the lid's all corroded. It's actually held on with cable ties. For starters, you can see clutch fluid is really dirty, really low. In comparison, the brake fluid is at absolute max, but the lid on that is really badly corroded. So I don't know if you guys can see this, but there's a little bit of condensation in there, and I think that might be repairable. I think I'll be able to get that out and reseal that, so that should be okay. The other nastiness that someone has added to this is Oxford heated grips. They have got to go, so I need to replace these with something nicer. The bar ends are rusted to hell, and someone has put these really tragic looking aftermarket levers on there, so I'm going to go back to OEM on that as well. But everything else, cockpit wise, looks okay so far. So one other thing that's noteworthy here is there's a bit of residue around the brakes up here. Feels slightly oily, could just be dirt build up, but I'm just going to check the master cylinder as well, because I've had one of these before, and the master cylinder, albeit it was the clutch master cylinder, did leak a little bit, so I'm just going to check that. There's also a couple of rusty bolts here that are going to need replacing as well. So cosmetically, just about every panel on this bike either needs repainting or replacing, so I'm gonna have to think about what I do there, whether or not I have a complete repaint in factory colors, or whether I buy Chinese bodywork, or whether I go for track fairings. Don't quite know yet. Aftermarket prices for bodywork is really expensive at the moment. Also, things like this, it's got headlight covers on it, which are nasty, but there's also a little chip in the headlight there, so don't really know what to do with that just yet. So the last thing, I don't know if you can see from this view, but the last thing, which is also the most serious thing in the cockpit, is actually the upper fairings. So the upper fairings been tilted up and backwards, and that's as a result of a crash, and it's because the lugs on the air scoop just in here have actually broken. So the whole front fairing has actually been pushed up. So I need to take that whole front fairing off to get a proper look at that. So I'm going to do that now. Okay, so I've got the front end off, and it's my worst fears have been confirmed, and that is that the lugs on the airbox have been completely snapped off, which wouldn't be a problem because this is just a piece of plastic, but they bolt onto the front here, and effectively it supports the whole clock mount. And this is made more complicated by the fact that this particular Aprilia has an active valve, so it changes the flow of air as it goes through the airbox. So if you can see, but in here there's actually like a small butterfly valve that moves off of a servo and redirects or shuts off the flow of air. So I suspect that part's not going to be cheap. Let's carry on. Okay, so next strange thing while I was taking the front end off is I noticed this on the inside of the fork leg. It looks like it's caught fire. Never seen that before. Looks like it's started to get at the braided lines. Hasn't penetrated the plastic. Yeah, bit of damage on this one as well. So obviously the forks are going to need replacing. There's a couple of rusty bolts here. It's worth mentioning actually that the bike came from the south coast. It's just a little wonder that there's rust all over it. The calipers are in pretty good condition. Yeah, the bolts I'm not too worried about. They're not going to cost a great deal of money. I'm just going to take the calipers off now and just check the condition of the brake pads, because that could be something that needs doing. And ultimately I'm going to change the tyres regardless, because the tyres that are on here are absolute rubbish. So yeah, let's get these off. So the calipers are in pretty good shape actually. They look like they could use a new pin, because this one's quite disgusting. Difficult to know how long the brake pads have been in there, but got quite a bit of life in them. But for safety's sake, I think I'm going to do a full caliper rebuild. The bolts are pretty rusty, but yeah, so brake pads on the shopping list definitely. So as you can see, I've taken the side fairing off. There's nothing too untoward under here, thankfully. I've checked the rear brake fluid reservoir. It's got brake fluid in it, so that's good. There is coolant in it, so that's good, although I'll probably change that and flush that through anyway. I have noticed that the rear brake controls are bent inwards, as you can probably see there, and there's obviously some rusty bolts on the rear set as well which need replacing. And also, where it's obviously been dropped, the exhaust can at the back has twisted and bent inwards, so that's going to need replacing, although to be fair I probably would have replaced that anyway. So one of the things I've noticed is that the tank wouldn't quite fit squarely when it was bolted on, so I undid the bolts and it sat back where it should, and as you can see here, this is all bent up, so this needs replacing. The list is definitely racking up. Okay, so I've got the tank up. Airbox bolts are already undone. Bit worrying. A little bit of oil residue on the top there, but not a lot. So that's a pretty good sign. Looks like it's had a recent air filter, but I'm going to take the shroud off now and check it. Everything else looks okay. Nothing too much to worry about there, I don't think. Let's get this air filter off anyway. I don't think that looks too bad, to be honest. I might change it anyway, just to be sure, but it looks okay. Nothing really. Bit of leaf, but no, looks fine. Okay, so I got what was left of the side fairing off, and was met with this monstrosity. So the bike, the guy lived in St Ives, which is near the beach, and what it looks like is there's a small oil leak coming from the gasket just underneath here, and somehow the oil has flicked up all over this, you know, and formed like an ooze, and sand has blown up and like fused itself to this magnesium casing. I think it will come back, but I'm gonna have to take it off and replace the gasket anyway, so depending on what that looks like when I take it off, I might have to replace it. The oil level is quite low, and there's a load of oil sort of flicked up all over the engine casing, so I'm going to have to be careful and just make sure that that is one of the priorities. Also, loads of rusty bolts, as you can see down here, all going to need replacing as well, so loads of cleaning to do. Only other thing under here that needs replacing, I don't know if you can see it, but right down there, there's a bodywork mount that's been bent upwards, so that's going to need taken out and replacing as well. I think it's probably just a bolt. Yeah, the list goes on. There's a couple of other bits I've noticed which are weird about this bike. It is a lot lower than a standard RSV. Now I can't tell whether this has just been wound right back here, and that's actually allowed the spring to expand, and so the back of the bike has dropped, or whether there's a linkage down the bottom, which is really dirty. It's difficult to tell whether it's a lowering linkage, so perhaps some of you guys might be able to give me a bit of a pointer there. Also, chain obviously is completely knackered, as are the sprockets, so they're going to have to go as well. But yeah, let me know. This is the standard Sachs shock as far as I can tell, but yeah, I could do with a bit of advice if you guys can see anything that I can't. So I've been scouring the web for like a week now, and I think I've found most of the parts that I need to fix the Aprilia. The thing that's really surprised me is people are absolutely capitalising upon second-hand parts these days. I can't get over how expensive some of these bits are. There are people advertising second-hand fairing panels with scratches on it for like £250 to £300. So a full set of plastics on eBay right now for this bike at over £1,500. Now, when these bikes are selling for £3,500 to £4,000, that is absolutely insane. And these people, I have no idea where these are getting the prices from, but if you go onto Ultimate Parts and some of the genuine parts sites, you'd be surprised at how cheaply you can pick up some genuine parts from Aprilia compared to the second-hand prices. It's absolutely insane. So I've managed to source a decent swing arm. That was one of the most difficult things to get with the original shock linkage on the bottom, so I'm going to do that. I've bought some new exhausts, which is quite exciting, from Lextech, and the link pipes that go with it as well. I've got a new set of tyres, 2 CTs from Michelin, which are going to go on. I've managed to source a set of fairings, which is really, really good, which includes a screen and all the carbon trims as well. And I've had to buy a whole bunch of bolts and nuts and stuff like that from Aprilia, mainly from Ultimate Parts, who are really good. Batteries and some ancillaries and bits like that all through eBay. So loads and loads of stuff going to be turning up in the post over the next few weeks. So really, really exciting times. So stick with us, and we'll be showing you all the new stuff going back on the bike shortly.